When you think about the last months of World War II, you think solely Berlin. You know, you think about the Russian advance on Berlin, because, you know, realistically speaking, that's where the war ended. But there was still massive efforts going on at the beginning of 1945, you know, from the West. So a documentary about varsity in the Rhineland is, you know, so overdue, so important, really.
I'm running around being armourer, set designer, production designer, emergency armourer, and specialist in the Vickers MG, of course.
So if that happens, and it's just that, literally.
We've got 4 guns out there set up in their holes as they would be for covering the Rhine, but specifically for sort of providing that context for pepper pot shooting as well.
What the gunners call the pepper pot, made up of ack-ack guns, tank guns, anti-tank guns, heavy machine guns, that just spray the German defences and add to the discomfort.
I'm the small arms, for want of a better word, expert, and I'm basically discussing all of the small arms used by both sides. So MG42s, Vickers Guns, Piats, Panzer Schrecks, all sorts. Once I got approached to do the documentary, I immediately thought, pepper pots, who do I know who's got a ton of Vickers Guns? So I messaged Rich and I said, I'm going to be doing some small arms segments for an upcoming documentary on the Rhineland campaign. I want to do some stuff on Vickers. What if we got a gun lineup? And went from there, didn't we, basically?
Yeah.
And then it's all the intricacies of getting 4 guns in gun pits and, you know, making it look good and stuff.
Yeah, it's remarkable what goes into the planning and what letdowns come along the way. Yeah, it would have been great to get 4 firing guns in pits.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that for a number of reasons.
We got 2, which is great.
We got 2, which is, you know, more than appears normally, and you know, we've got 2 firing together, which is superb. Think of a documentary with Vickers in it.
Yeah, it's normally just a couple of guys like sat on a range with the tripod at like max height, and then just like, you know, it's
really sterile.
Yeah, exactly, and you don't get any sort of idea of what it would have looked like in use. So we're lucky enough to have photographs and some newsreel of it being used in the, you know, in the Rhineland, you know, the Reichswald, etc. So we're lucky enough to know, you know, what a gun pit outside of, you know, any German town would have looked like.
Yeah.
So we can recreate that. You know.
Planning out what we were going to do, getting the pits dug. You know, we're lucky to have access to a location where we could do that sometime in advance. We had to do as much of that we had to do all of what we did by hand, which meant that we couldn't do everything we wanted to.
Yeah.
So you can see that in some of the detail and certainly the overhead stuff a little bit, which is, again, one of those little letdowns that, you know, perhaps people watching the documentary won't notice, hopefully, but people watching this will.
Behind the scenes, number 1 pit was the hero pit. It was deeper. The proper depth, and then, you know, by the end of the gun line, it's just a little scrape, wasn't it?
Everything was planned into perspective.
Being one of the gunners on the two live guns, and wishing for the best, I think that it all worked, but as we know, it didn't go quite to plan. We had the issues with the multiple issues with sort of the weather affecting the efficiency of the guns. The belts shrinking, so the extractor couldn't. Well, the lock not being able to pull the next round out and it jamming, and sort of trying to work out what the issue was.
Similarly, we were down to single shot on the weapons because of damp ammunition belts, the pressure, so atmospheric pressure changes because we've got the blank firing adapters, so we had to keep tweaking those to suit things.
Well, like you were saying before, you know, in the field, you know, the ammunition would have come in the boxes, would have been sealed, wouldn't have been exposed.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when we're filming out in the field and it's, you know, got some pretty driving constant rain, the belts are already out, the boxes are open.
Yeah.
Moisture's going to get in there.
Yeah, the damp really got in the way of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to do a full piece of camera. In the end, the weather was just not in any fit shape to do it, so I just did an introduction with the rain like whipping into my face and Rich laughing at me off camera.
We also had the problem at one point of a breakage on one of the guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the feed block pin broke, or split pin came apart. So that caused a problem. So it's all sort of relatively real stuff, actually, when you're firing lots of rounds of ammunition. And we got through about 900 rounds of ammunition as part of that.
Slightly more than we planned.
Yeah, actually, yeah. It was.
Well, I've been a bit of a general dog's body, really, but mainly been helping hold up auto cues, taking behind-the-scenes shots of the Vickers Guns in their pits, carrying things, just getting some nice behind-the-scenes VT footage to use on a making of, hopefully a little making of piece.
And I was glad actually that it was, at least a little bit moist, because it's kind of period correct. That's what it was like in February 45. It wasn't exactly, wasn't in spring yet. It was a standard European sort of like end of winter, wasn't it? So that was fairly representative. So that was nice. But yeah, I mean, we overcame. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, you'll see from all the vids on my channel or where we've done stuff before, it's me firing.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of used to stoppages and resolving them and what comes up, and the difficulty of having people in uniform in the pits that haven't fired many rounds through the Vickers before, or when they haven't had the problems, and me trying to work out what's happening from not being sat behind a gun as well. So yeah, that worked quite well. COVID restrictions have obviously caused us a bit of bother, and so this was put back as much as we could to know what the restrictions would enable us to do.
Yeah, I didn't think it would come off, to be honest.
No.
So I'm glad it did.
Yeah, it did, but that's why we've only got one guy in each pit to start with, and then we allowed
COVID tests.
Yeah, 2 guys in the pits that were part of the same bubble once we'd done all the testing and everything that we had to do yesterday morning. We've maintained that bubble to today. So we can carry on. When this isn't the sort of day job to work out what these COVID restrictions are, there's been a lot of research into how to do that.
Yeah.
What else did we have to do?
Risk assessments, etc.
Yeah, which sort of is part of the course of what we do for shoots anyway.
Yeah.
But it just had to have that extra bit of activity. The location we used was much more exposed because of some roadworks that were happening, which has removed some of the barriers and stuff that we'd normally have. It's all stuff that we've tackled, but just perhaps there's a little bit more than you'd think about that behind the scenes as well.